Hello, I'm assuming you can see me. Sorry, Pike, come here. I've been crying all day and smoking all day, so things are rough. But then I put a pillow in front of the camera, sorry. Here I am though. It's Joe. Welcome to Out of This Binary. Welcome to the weekend. We're talking about consent, and I will probably cry, but hopefully not. So I'm adjusting pillows some more. I'm in my bed, can you tell? Okay. I am going to talk about something I'm going to talk about something called informed consent, which is a way that medical treatment is done, because that's most relevant to my life at the moment, and it relates directly to transitioning. So here's my story about consent and transitioning and why I can't stop crying. That's not true, I'm not crying right now, so I stopped. Woohoo! So, informed consent is a way that medical treatment is given to patients by informing the patient about like the risks and benefits and possible outcomes of medical treatment, and having you sign a form acknowledging that you have received this information and you are consenting to treatment. So that's what informed consent is, I think. I'm not a medical professional, so don't quote me on this. I'm just a disabled trans person trying to make my way through the world like the rest of you. I know not all of you are disabled, but I'm talking a lot to the disabled trans people right now. So here we go. So I got my prescription for tea, and it got sent to the pharmacy, and then we were trying to get an prior authorization approved, trying to get insurance to approve the prescription and pay for it because I can't pay for it. But insurance was like, no. And then my doctor was like, here's more information. And insurance was like, no. Has this person had therapy or psychotherapy? Maybe was what was said. I don't know. This is what my doctor told me. And the doctor was like, oh, I don't know. And then the doctor was like, I don't know if this person can give consent, informed consent. Wait, first of all, I already had an appointment where I received all the information and a form, and I signed it saying I received information and gave consent to treatment, that I understood everything, which I do because I have another form. I have the form right here, which is for, yeah, look, it says informed consent. Ignore that it says female to male, gender. It's informed consent, gender transition. Okay. So anyways, so I did all that. I had a blood test to make sure I was healthy, which I am, physically healthy, and that was given, and that is why I got the go-ahead to start tea. Then, so then the whole insurance thing has been happening. So then I got a call from my doctor a few days ago to tell me that because insurance was asking for more information about my mental health background, and because the doctor didn't have the proper qualifications to assess my mental health, because it's not her specialty, like she's just a GP or a PCP, depending on which country you're in. Just a regular doctor, general practitioner, or primary care provider. That's what all those words are. So she was, I guess, talking to the director of the clinic where I've been going, which is like a trans healthcare clinic. And the director was like, well, because this person has dissociative identity disorder, how do we know if all of this person's identities, personalities, whatever, have given consent? And so they decided, without ever talking to me, that I required further psychological evaluation before they could decide that I had given consent. So, the consent that I gave, my informed consent, is irrelevant because some other people decided that we as a system needed more evaluation before they could decide if we could have tea, or before they could tell insurance to pay for the tea. So mostly I'm like confused, and mostly I'm like, I don't understand how this consent thing is supposed to be working if you just like revoked the consent. Also, during the initial appointment, I like talked about how being a DID system, and I was asked if like all of us in my system have agreed to transition, and I was like, yes, we've all talked about this many, many times in writing and in all the conversations we have inside of our head. We are ready. Please let us transition. And so like this is an instance about consent where like it is good. Like informed consent is, I agree with like giving everybody information and having everybody agree to that information. What I don't agree with is having given consent for treatment that I want to receive, that all of us inside of me want, in this body, want to receive, and having that consent, having my consent, our consent revoked because other people decided that we can't decide. So this is an instance where it's like consent needs to be believed when it's given and when it's not given. And it's like in the medical field, it feels super ableist and discriminatory to tell me that my consent is not my consent, and to tell me that even though this clinic doesn't require people wanting to transition, people wanting to get hormone replacement therapy to have therapy first, they are requiring me to have psychological evaluation first because of a diagnosis that I have. So it feels a lot like discrimination and ableism when like my consent isn't believed. So then I'm like, what's the fucking point about consent in this situation when it doesn't matter? And I know like it's also complicated with insurance things, and I don't claim to fully understand what's happening because people aren't giving me all the information about what's happening anymore, I don't think. And it doesn't seem to matter what it is that I do. So that's one thing about consent right now. Don't cry, don't cry. I just really want to fucking transition. Well, when I say I want to fucking transition, I mean I really want to go on T, and I really want top surgery. And I want that part of transitioning, part of my transition. Everybody's transition is their own. Your transition is your own. Your consent should be believed, and your not consent should be believed. You have a right to that voice, your voice, and you have a right to your consent and your not consent. I know that there's a lot of other ways we could talk about consent. So I think I'm going to talk really briefly, if that's possible for me, about like the basic principle of consent, which is one, it's not really that basic, but let me try this. Consent is believing a person and listening to a person or an animal or like a being. a sentient being, and it is doing your best to understand what is being communicated. And it is taking the time to communicate no matter the awkwardness of the communication, no matter how weird it might feel in the moment. So, at least that's how I understand consent, is that it is in essence listening and respecting what is being communicated. And this can be nonverbal, because lots of things get communicated without language. So it could be through a lot of other ways, but it's really about listening to the person, and if you're unsure, waiting or finding out more information. In the case of signing a medical form, it's pretty fucking clear. Okay, well, that's what I had to say about consent. I'm gonna hang in there, you hang in there. It's finals time for people who are in school. School sucks, but it's almost the break time. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.